What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Can I Kick It? This is your host, Elliot Barr. Joining me, as always, my good man,
Shania Duran II.
See, I didn't give you a chance to do it this time.
You didn't. You just ran right through that.
I did. I feel proud of that. I feel proud of that. That's my achievement for today. But I don't think that achievement compares to anything to about the guy we're about to talk to right now, the guy that we kind of nicknamed Yoda.
Yeah.
I mean, his pedigree alone, man, it stands up there. It stands up there. I'll give him the GOAT title.
Definitely.
I'll give him the GOAT title.
Definitely. In terms of black coaches.
Not even black coaches. Coaches, period.
Coaches, period.
Leaving a legacy.
Oh, man. Yeah. So let's get into this.
All right. So
Lincoln Phillips.
You're right. If you don't know now, you should have known by the title because you clicked on the episode.
Yes.
Phillips, the guy out of Trinidad and Tobago. Man. Yo, so, all right. So Lincoln Phillips, born and raised in Trinidad and Tobago, starts out playing there. Did not even know that he was playing for the national team at the moment. Like, was the number one player for the national team, and Shaka Islam. Did I say his name right this time?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yes. If you know the podcast, you know I have a hard time saying that.
I mean, if you're wondering who Shaka Islam is, ESPN FC.
Yeah.
He's the guy with the really strong Caribbean accent on that show.
So pretty much, even he says that Lincoln Phillips is the greatest national team player of all time. Like, he is the greatest Trinidadian and Tobago player of all time. Not only for what he did on the field, but more so what he's done off the field. His accomplishments off the field are mind-boggling.
Yes.
I mean,
some of his accomplishments and some of the footprints that he has left on college soccer, on US soccer, is amazing.
Oh, simply amazing. I mean, think about it, for instance, he only played in 7 international games for Trinidad and Tobago. 3 of them happened. 3 of those games were played against Chelsea, Wolves, and Mexico. Yeah, that's a great international start to somebody's career. But he starts playing against those teams, and they actually going on and win the Pan American Games in '67. They finished winning the bronze that year, and it's kind of weird. But after '68, because he attended college in Trinidad and Tobago, he leaves because he gets drafted in the NASL by the Baltimore Bays. Trinidad and Tobago doesn't select him anymore to be number one. And I don't know if you did, but I could not find a reason as to why they did not pick him up anymore. Like, it's no more than picking up the phone and be like, hey, we got a game of the 5th. You want to play? Like, this guy's your number one. You should want him to play.
Well, I mean, in today's day and age, it's mind-boggling to see that. It's strange to see. It would be unheard of for a player who traveled abroad not to be called back. You look, for example, at today, and ever since the mid to late 90s, from then on to today, Brazil's national team is probably entirely made up of players that are playing in Europe.
Yeah. I mean, imagine Brazil, like, Ederson leaves Brazil. He's like, hey, guys, I'm going to go play in England. And Brazil's like, all right, you're not going to be our number one anymore. Like,
so, in a time like this, most people stayed within their countries with regards to playing soccer. There wasn't as much, especially in the Western Hemisphere. In Europe, it wasn't as much. I mean, if you look, for example, in England, you look around this time, around the 60s, around the 70s, teams like Manchester United, Liverpool, Chelsea, Nottingham Forest were basically entirely English players. Recently...
So you think it's more of like...
If you look, for example...
You want somebody that's local.
Exactly.
It's not that whole traverse.
You want someone
who's
that makes
local. Sense. But still, he's your number one. You can call him up.
I know he is, but
all right,
in this time of period, you got to think about the ramifications of that and how much that would go into.
Let's not get hung up on that. But 68, he gets drafted and whatnot by the Baltimore Bays, and he only stays there for 1 year. And this is not his first time playing professional soccer. He played already in Trinidad and Tobago, I think, for the Regiment and Maple.
Yes.
Already, but he was drafted by Baltimore Bays in the NASL, and then he leaves them after a year, goes to the ASL. I swear, America and these soccer leagues are like the alphabet soup.
Oh, goodness. the amount of different acronyms they have is just...
Yeah. So he goes to the Washington Darts, and there he is not only the player, but he's also a player coach.
Yes.
He stays there for 2 years, but while he's there in Washington, and this is what we found in the Jet magazine article from November 21st, 1967. See, this is why my history details come into play. 68. He's the first ever black head coach in professional soccer history. Like, how is that a fact that has never been talked about? Why have we never talked about this, guys? I need answers.
To be honest with you, I don't know. I can't give you an answer. I don't know. It's strange because we just came out of a period of pride here in Richmond of having a black head coach for the Richmond Kickers.
Yeah.
And it's really strange to know that this man, who not only was the first black head coach in American soccer history, but also with the track record he has, that's saying something.
Yeah.
That's saying a lot because, excuse me, not only is he the first, but he took the game by storm. He's changed so much in the game. He left his footprint on the American game.
Most definitely he did. And I mean, while he's there to watch it, it's not like he's there just doing a mediocre job. This team goes 6 wins, I think 1 loss or 1 draw. There wasn't really a way to draw. They just threw the record out there, so I don't know if it was win, loss, draw, or win, draw, loss. Mm-hmm. But regardless, they scored 22 goals. Like, and this is kind of like the early trend of Lincoln Phillips teams, these juggernaut teams that can win.
That can win, that know how to put the ball in the back of the net and can devastate you on the attack.
Yeah. So, I mean, while he's at Washington Darts, of course, we all know he gets the job at Howard Bison. And he's still playing professionally, but he started coaching Howard, started focusing more on them. And I swear, I want to have a podcast, and I hope you feel the same way when I say this. I want to have a podcast dedicated specifically to the Howard team. Because they are.
We need a podcast that talks about an episode. I think we should have an episode that talks about this Howard soccer program from 71 to 75.
Because they were on another level. It was
ridiculous.
It
was ridiculous.
Man, I don't think, and I haven't really kept up with college soccer like that, but to have a team that won the national championship in 71, get it stripped, get to the national semifinals in 72, gets banned in 73, comes back and obliterates the field in 74? That's insane.
It's ridiculous.
And not obliterate and just they were winning games. No. This team went on a 19-game winning streak.
19-0-0. That was their record.
They scored 63 goals. They only gave up 6.
63 goals in 19 games. I just want people to you can pause your player right now and just think about that. 19 games, 63 goals.
That is insane.
And you only let in 6.
Yeah, only let in 6. They let in 6 for fun. Probably only, I'm not going to say match fixing, but just all right, we're trying to blow in our team, score a goal. We got to get this game going somehow. But I mean, yeah, I really want to have a podcast dedicated to the Howard team alone. But while he was at Howard, he also had won 116 games. I think 19 losses and 11 draws. But I think Howard really, if there's any time period that you really want to focus on Lincoln Phillips, it really is the Howard years.
It definitely is.
He not only had an impact within soccer, not at the school, but in that region and in that area. I mean, think about it. This is the first time ever. This is the only Division I championship among HBCUs. In any sport, basketball, football, baseball, track and field, it comes from soccer. A sport that we have said multiple times is not a predominant sport in the black community. So to win a national championship, and it wasn't like he was winning this with predominantly white teams or teams that were greatly mixed. No, he was going out and recruiting guys from the West Indies, Africa, the Caribbean, and giving them opportunities to come play the game of soccer here in America. But not only fostering them in that, but winning and dominating. Like, only thing that I can compare it to is how when USC and football went to Alabama, I think in the 1970s, probably around the same time, and they played Alabama, and they beat Alabama against an Alabama team that was predominantly white. And Paul Brown was like, "Yeah, you see them on the USA team? Give me some of them.
Yeah,
bring them here."
And you see it in a lot of different sports, but the one that stands out for me the most is within basketball. If you look, for example,
that's why so many examples of it.
I mean, you look at, for example, look at players like Paul Gasol. Look at players like, you see a lot of these foreign players who you think to yourself, oh, they probably have some scout that went out, into another. No, they came to American universities. They played basketball at American universities and were drafted from there, and that's something that is rampant because we know that the infrastructure of the United States is always looked at as a big deal around the world, and especially from countries where they are probably particularly struggling. So, with that being said, you're gonna have a lot of people from the Caribbean, from Africa, just saying, "Oh, you want me to come and play soccer so I can go to school and play soccer?" Absolutely. I get to come to the U.S., to the United States of America. That's why immigration is so big here, and I feel that it was revolutionary for Phillips to say, well, if we are allowing Africans, Caribbeans, Asians, Europeans, South Americans to come to the United States to study, why not let them come and play too?
Yeah, and he was way ahead of his time. I mean, also, like, he mentions how in 71 they played Clemson, and Clemson was all white. They had, let me correct that. They had
one black guy on the team.
One black guy on the team. And they were like, Clemson, of course, gets blown out by Howard. The following year, 72, they played Clemson again. Clemson team looks completely different.
Clemson team looked like NATO.
Yeah. They changed around everything. And Lincoln was like, did you paint your players black? Because this ain't the team we played last year. But it goes to show, and you mentioned that about how soccer coaching is the only time that plagiarism is allowed.
Plagiarism is allowed and encouraged in soccer. Any other field you go into, in coaching, any other field you go into, engineering, journalism, law, history, if you plagiarize, you get kicked out of wherever you're at.
Yeah.
In soccer, you plagiarize, you take something that someone else did and you put your own spin on it, you're applauded for it.
Yeah. Pretty much. But I mean, like, other schools started doing this recruitment policy of going to the West Indies, Africa, and the Caribbean and getting these players to be like, hey, we want you to play here.
Yeah.
And Lincoln Phillips, he also, he mentions in other articles as well. I think it was the Undefeated article about how this is where the downfall of HBCU soccer and sports kind of takes that downfall because he was like, we don't have the finances and we don't have the equipment to compete with your PWIs. For those who don't know what PWIs are, predominantly white institutes. Your Dukes, your Clemsons, your UVAs. Mm-hmm. Schools where the majority base is white.
Yes.
And he was like, we couldn't compete with that. I think one of the famous players on the team, Unwa Idigawu, he scored the winner in 71, left the team in 72 to go play for Clemson. Because he's like, I have a better opportunity here at Clemson to get to the professional ranks. And we see that a lot. And I think it was is also a credit to Phillips and what he was able to do is that he was still able to recruit strong for a 10-year span where, granted, soccer was never the most dominant sport during this era. It probably wasn't even the most popular.
Nowhere
but
near.
Still, he was still able to compete with the likes of the St. Louis's, the Clemsons and stuff,
Yeah.
And that is unique to see.
Well, I mean, we think of it now, of course, everyone has 20/20 vision in hindsight, but you think of it now and you think of, okay, I can recruit from, we can go and you look at a university like Clemson, a university like UVA, like Duke, like Boston University. They're looking, I'm not just talking about within soccer, I'm just, the school in general is looking for, I know they don't intend to, but upper class.
Yeah.
But let's think about that upper class. That upper class is growing up understanding that success in sports comes from being the all-around athlete. I do football in the fall and play basketball in the winter and run track in the spring, and I'm the all-around athlete. I'm the school's athlete all-star. But you turn into a jack of all trades and master of none. And now you compare that, so you take a kid who's playing soccer in the fall and basketball in the winter and playing lacrosse in the spring, as opposed to a kid who grows up in the streets of Senegal or the streets of Haiti or the streets of Jamaica, and when they get out of school, all they're doing is playing soccer.
Yeah.
You get out of school, you play soccer. Summer vacation, you play soccer. Christmas break, you're playing soccer. Anytime you're not in school or studying, you're out with your friends playing soccer. And when I say soccer, I don't mean like rec soccer down the street where you're standing in a line to dribble through cones. No, this is like neighborhood versus neighborhood. This is the level of the World Cup kids playing soccer. That's what you live every day. Of course that kid is going to do way better than a kid who only plays soccer in the spring or in the fall.
Yeah. And I mean, looking at Phillips, man, like, it's so much about him that I felt like you don't hear about. Of course, you hear about the 71 team.
Mm-hmm.
You hear about kind of what he did with Trinidad and Tobago. But outside that, you don't really hear about it.
You don't hear about it outside of that, but within the places that he was, you do. Like, for example, at VCU, I know a lot of former VCU players. I actually coach alongside a lot of them. Even about 20 years after Lincoln Phillips had a 5-year span at VCU, they know his name.
Yeah.
They know that the way that they play here at VCU is because of something he brought to the table.
Yeah.
So he's a name that all of the players there, or at least the ones that want to know the name Lincoln Phillips. So, of course, anyone outside of that, it's really strange to see how little. To be honest with you, it's not just black soccer players and black soccer coaches. Soccer players and soccer coaches, period, in the United States don't get the acclaim they need. And I think within the black community, that ties into following the trend, following the popularity.
Yeah.
For example, you have a lot of kids. When I was growing up, I went to a pretty mixed high school. But the only kids that made fun of me for playing soccer were the black kids.
Yeah.
The white kids didn't make fun of me for playing soccer. And you had these kids, they're telling me about Kobe Bryant, and I know who Kobe Bryant is. Do you know who Kobe Jones is? I know who Michael Jordan is. Do you know who Eddie Pope is? I know who LeBron James and Carmelo Anthony are. Do you know Josie Altidore? Do you know DeMarcus Beasley? And these people who have represented the United States all over the world at the highest level in a tournament that is watched by more people than there are in the United States double over.
Well, that's why we created this podcast today. All right, well, let's get back on track. I had to let you go on your soapbox for a moment. I'm
off the soapbox.
All right, so Lincoln Phillips ends his Howard career, 2 NCAA championships ahead. He gets back to 71 after they win the appeal. 2 coaches of the year, 71, 74. He leaves Howard and kind of has like a mid kind of break and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Now, it was kind of hard to figure out what he was doing in this 10 years, man. I figured he's still living in the D.C. area because his whole career happened in this area. Then he comes to Richmond, coaches at VCU, and leads VCU Rams to their first ever top 25 ranking. Yeah. Which is significant enough if you want to think about it that way. I don't know a whole bunch about college soccer, but it's significant.
Yeah, I mean, to this day, VCU is considered a powerhouse within the NCAA. They are considered. They're not a doormat. They're not. Okay. They're not a doormat of the NCAA. And
I'm sorry to any VCU fans that listen to this podcast because I'm not trying to disrespect your school. I'm sorry. Please do not tweet angrily at me. God, I don't want that. All right. But the other thing that's unique about Lincoln Phillips is not only does he also serve in the college, you would think. And this is before we did our research on him. I only thought of Lincoln Phillips as a college coach because that's all we ever heard about. Having no idea he served as the FIFA staff goal instructor from 95 to 96. He was also the goalkeeper coach for the 94 U.S. men's national team. The team that made it to the World Cup.
The team that did a very good job in the World Cup. This 94 World Cup is here in the United States, and the United States did acquitted themselves very well in that World Cup.
And this is also a team that has Tony Meola, that has Brad Friedel on it. 2 living legends of the goalkeeping world on it. I would hate to be in that room to be like, all right, we started Tony today or we started Brad? That's what we do.
That's a tough decision. And that's the reason why ever since around the time where Lincoln Phillips was very key in the U.S. Soccer scene, we've never had a poor goalkeeper. Think Tony Meola.
Brad Guzan.
Guzan is not a poor goalkeeper. Atlanta United.
And? Back to Lincoln Phillips. We'll finish this discussion offline.
I know, because at the end of the day, you think about it. Tony Meola, Brad Friedel, Casey Keller, Tim Howard.
He definitely does. I'll give you this. Lincoln Phillips sets. He sets the foundation of what the U.S. goalkeeper is. Because in his book, he even talks about how the goalkeeper is. Not only are they the first line of defense,
they're the first line of attack. They're the last line of defense and the first line of attack, and it makes complete sense.
And that's what the U.S. goalkeeper has matured into. Because before that, speaking of someone that learned goalkeeper the wrong way, was get the ball, protect the ball, kick ball long, don't get scored on it.
So once you kicked it long, that was it. Your job was done.
Yeah, I was a horrible teammate. I kicked the ball long to strikers and be like, well, my job anymore.
I'm done. I'm just standing back here waiting until something happens. But it's only now you start to see when you watch games. How many times have you seen a goalkeeper get interviewed in a post-match interview? They done lost their voice because they're yelling orders throughout the whole game. They lost their voice. You can't interview them after the game. They're going to be whispering the whole interview long.
How did you do in the game?
It's because it's developed. It's developed into that 11th player on the field. No. And Lincoln Phillips played a big part in that development and that evolution of the goalkeeper.
Yeah, he definitely did. And after he leaves VCU, of course he goes to Loyola. He's a goalkeeper coach there. Also, he spends time with Trinidad and Tobago. He helps Trinidad and Tobago get to the 2006 World Cup as the technical director, and he comes back, I think 2019, as the head of scouting. So, this guy is, that's why I say he is Yoda. He does so much stuff behind the scenes. This dude is legit. He is legit, man. I love Lincoln Phillips.
Yes, even leading up to that 2006 World Cup, he played a big part in Trinidad and Tobago had for the few years before that 2006 World Cup, had a very prolific international period. Like U17 men's, U17 women's, U20 men's, making big time appearances in World Cups of those age groups.
Yeah.
And he played a big part in that development.
Setting the foundations of what this team would look like. And not only in the men's game, but also in the women's game as well. And another thing that, was sticking out to me is that he started the Black Soccer Coaches Association in 1988. Mm-hmm. And he talked about it, how it was kind of being the rogue person. Like, Lincoln Phillips, you would think is this quiet, mild-mannered person. No, that won't Lincoln Phillips.
No.
His prime examples throughout his life where he's not afraid to speak out against and speak for those whose voices won't be heard as much. And he creates this organization, the Black Soccer Coaches Association, to get more black coaches into the game. It's still around today.
Yes.
And a very famous quote from him at the NCAA banquet after they lost to St. Louis in 72. The way how they lost in 72 was not because they got outplayed. No, two of their best players got suspended the night before the game.
Yeah.
And Howard didn't want to have to forfeit the game when they beat St. Louis. So they was like, all right, sit out. You'll play in the final once everything cleared up. They don't win. And Lincoln Phillips does have to go to this banquet afterwards because I think they invited all the teams. And he pretty much says, we played against an entire wretched system of the society. Anytime they decide to get together to deprive any people of what is due to them, I would say that the NCAA is guilty of practicing racism. St. Louis did not beat Howard University last night. They beat the remainers of what is left of Howard University. The place went quiet, and Phillips recalls, and he says to himself, "Oh my God, what are you saying? What are you going to do after this?" But I mean, it's like in that moment, Phillips is correct. He's right in everything that he's saying.
It's true.
And
I think one of the biggest issues is they have no problem, and this is it's basically what I think Phillips is trying to say is, you have no problem allowing us to play, but when we start winning is when you start worrying and when you start creating reasons for us not to win.
And especially with like the 71 team, for instance, like they win the title, handed over to St. Louis team that up to that moment, correct me if I'm wrong, was a powerhouse.
Yes.
They beat that St. Louis team that was predominantly white. They get stripped of their They get stripped of the title because two players were considered ineligible because of SATs, and another two used up their college eligibility. 72, same issue occurs in the national semifinal when they play St. Louis. 73, they're banned from pro season. 74, they come back and run gunshot over everyone and reclaim their title. But it's like, at that moment, it being the only black head coach in that era, probably, you're thinking like, man, I got everything stacked up against me. And instead of just thinking about it a negative way, he flips it into a positive and gets his players to buy in on it more. It kind of builds this nurturing system that we haven't seen probably since then. Is especially in the college ranks, Yeah. Because how many times have you seen the situation now where school is suspended and players leave? The players in 71 stayed.
Yeah.
They stayed through 72, stayed through 73, stayed through 74.
And they saw that they... the thing is, they will always be remembered, especially within the Howard within the Howard community. But
have a drink of water before you choke. I don't need you to die on this podcast.
It goes to show that it takes that leader, and Phillips was that leader that even though things got rough, he was still able to keep them together and say, "Look, I know we got robbed last year, but let's come back stronger this year.
Yeah.
Let's come back stronger next year. Let's come back stronger the year after that." And to have that and to go into that last year and just steamroll everyone, steamroll your way through the season and win, it speaks volumes. After all they had to go through.
Yeah. I mean, even us doing the research and whatnot, we found a lot of, I think like early on, I was like upset because I was like, yo, I just want to find information on Lincoln Phillips. Like, I don't want to know about the Howard team yet. But it's like, they're both intertwined, and I understand why now because, and I think this is the impact of who Lincoln Phillips is. you can't talk about Lincoln Phillips without Howard. You can't talk about Howard without Lincoln. And what the impact that team had, not only in what they had overcome, but also in the culture of what's happening in that moment in that society.
Yeah.
And I mean, he sets the foundation of not only Howard soccer, but also the foundation of Trinidad and Tobago. You know, because without Lincoln, does Trinidad and Tobago make it to 2006 World Cup?
That's a good question.
Do they have the foundations of, like, those players like Dwight York and Shaka and things like that? Do they have that core foundation? Or do Dwight York and Shaka be like, well, hey, I'll go to England?
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
But to have a person like Lincoln Phillips in the room and say, like, hey, it ain't great. You're not going to get everyone. But to have those two be part of the moment is key. And I'm all about giving a person that flowers when they deserve it, and Phillips definitely deserves his flowers.
Yes,
Above anything else. He deserves his flowers. Anything else before we wrap up, my good man?
I think he needs a stadium named after him.
Well, it took DC 20 years to build Audi, so you're going to have to wait another 20 years.
Yeah. I guess.
But anything else? I mean, also, he won a Lifetime Achievement Award.
Lifetime Achievement Award also has two soccer schools?
Yeah, two soccer schools.
Two soccer schools. He has the Lincoln Phillips Soccer School and the Top Flight Goalkeeping Academy.
Yeah.
He owns and directs those.
Owns and directs those. Dude, and he's in the Hall of Fame with like 3 Howards, the Virginia, D.C. Soccer Hall of Fame.
And also right? Trinidad and Tobago Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I mean, Lifetime Achievement Award, Hall of Fame's own soccer school, is developing the youth wherever he can. He is a great ambassador for the game.
He is.
Man. A wonderful ambassador for the game.
Over the top. All right. So, I guess I'll do the links this time.
Yes.
All right. So, first off, links we got is Virginia Hall of Fame, Jet Magazine, November 21st, 1968. The Undefeated article covering the Howard 1971 team. SoccerWarriors.net player profile on Lincoln Phillips. Trinidad and Tobago introduction on Lincoln Phillips. We got it back from wbur talking about the Howard soccer team in 71. Howard history making men's soccer championship, The Guardian. Stars and Stripes, shout out to our boy Donald. Howard finds redemption. And of course, ESPN Spike Lee's redemption song. So, any last remarks about our good guy Lincoln Phillips?
Lincoln Phillips, the name needs to be remembered by more people in the soccer community worldwide, not just in the United States, but worldwide.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And the quote to close you out this week is from the GOAT Kobe Bryant. Kobe B. Bryant.
Rest in peace.
It's magic within each of us that gives us the potential to inspire the world. I definitely think Lincoln Phillips inspired the world.
He definitely did.
All right. So, that's our 3rd episode of Can I Kick It? All right.
Yes, you can.
So, as always, you can follow our show on River City 93. Leave us a like, subscribe, review, share the podcast with someone else. And as always, this is Elliot.
This is Shanir.
Catch us on the good side, guys. We'll catch you guys later.